This is Coda Radio, episode 248 for March 13th, 2017. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode's brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Scale Your Code. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week, reviewing the feedback, the data, and the stats, is Mr. Michael Dominic. Hello, Mike.
How's the you, sir?
Oh, what's the matter? You seem a little down.
Someone told the kids that I screwed up their whole lives.
Oh, you did. Oh, it's gone bad. It's gone bad. What? You know, it's okay. You don't have to blame yourself. Just blame it on like a lower person down in the echelon. Like, you have people working for you, right, Jar Jar? You got a crew. Just blame it on your crew. That's what all of the good politicians do.
Yes, sir. His name is Hayden Christensen.
You know what you need is a little pick-me-up. You need the Richard Stallman. Here you go. You ready for this? This is the free software song just for you. Special radio recorded edition. That's why it's not in English. Yeah. You see, Mike?
This is like the shittiest recording you could.
Now and share the software.
Yes.
You'll be free, hackers. You'll be free.
Oh my God.
You like it, right?
And share the software.
It's like it's like if Simon and Garfunkel were dying in the woods together. To see them crying and just singing that with Richard Stallman.
All right, well,
Get it out of here.
I guess that didn't work. I thought that might pick you up, though. I thought that might turn things around for you. You know?
Yeah.
I like the free hackers thing. That's nice. It appeals to me. There's something about it. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little YouTube DL on that one.
As long as you don't have an iPhone, Samsung TV, Amazon Home,
or the Flash
or other
player to
various
watch
device that the CIA hacked into. Yeah,
right.
You'll be fine.
Ooh. All right. So we got a lot to cover today here in episode 248 of our program. Do you want to start with the little crow that we have here regarding WebAssembly? Because we got some great feedback about it, and I did a little deep dive since our last episode, learned a lot more about it. So I got a ton of stuff to share with the class. But we did get some feedback from people who were like, guys, come on, WebAssembly, what the F? That kind of sums it up to a degree, right?
Yeah, so I ended up writing a post about, we basically got some feedback that was like, how could you be so spot on with Docker?
Whoa!
Plug. And so, like, missing WebAssembly. And I wrote a post, and basically, Misa was wrong, all right? Misa make a few, mistakes.
We did talk about it a while ago, didn't we? Didn't we mention it? And we were kind of like,
but you know what the problem was? We viewed it through the lens of replacements for JavaScript rather than its kind of own compile to source. And I wrote a whole post about this on dominicm.com that you can go check out. But basically, I incorrectly saw it as, well, let me set this up right. There was a high correlation between the folks who hated JavaScript as a language and were advocating for crazy things like CoffeeScript and the folks who were advocating for WebAssembly. So I sort of lumped all those folks into one basket, dare I say binder. Now let's say basket of deplorables. And kind of assigned the CoffeeScript / anti-JavaScript to the WebAssembly folks. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to be clear. CoffeeScript is still a bad idea. It's just all have that in our... I know it's the default in Rails. That's a mistake. They should go to TypeScript. But that's basically how we missed it, right? It was, one of the things with the open source community is you have a lot of opinions and a lot of voices, and there is a high correlation between people who tend to think the same thing. And even today, there is still a high correlation between people who like WebAssembly and people who want an alternative to JavaScript. So,
well put. And excuse me, I have I have a lot to say about WebAssembly. Would you permit, I know I just abused it, but would you permit another video? Because I found a really great video. It's from CPPCon 2016, and it's Dan Goman. He talks about WebAssembly in such a good, elegant way in like the first 30 seconds of his video that I almost feel like it would be good to see if I can find it really quick. Because I watched it.
Go ahead. I'm on TweelXDancing.com. So
you can. I don't know if you can tell, but I did like a deep dive over the weekend, and so I noticed. I did this. I found this video over the weekend, so let me see if I can find it again super quick here because it's really good. And it was at a talk. It's going to be hard to find, of course. Wait. I think I might have just. Oh, go ahead.
While you find that, Shadow7 in the chat room's exactly correct, because all processing should be done on the client side. Make those filthy users pay for it.
Hey, that's why I buy the nice devices. Let me do it, right? That's why I get
That's right. Let them do it. Let them pay. All
so
right.
I won't play this longer than it needs to, but I feel like it's such a great reason why WebAssembly is so obviously the future that I just wanted to start with this.
WebAssembly is targeting compiled languages. It's portable. We're going to run it on the web. We don't want to bake in a particular architecture. And it's secure. It has basically essentially the same security model that JavaScript has. It can't touch your local file system. It can't corrupt your machine. It's stuck within the sandbox of the browser. And it's an open standard being worked on by multiple browser vendors. A couple quick overview of WebAssembly. If you haven't seen it, familiar with it, it's a pretty normal architecture in many ways. WebAssembly benefits a lot from the convergence of CPU architectures over the decades. So many of the sort of odd details of CPU architectures that tend to bubble up through the ecosystem have basically converged, and modern architecture like x86 and ARM more or less agreed in a lot of these basic details. I do want to call out in particular the IEEE 754 floating point. WebAssembly has float and double as single and double precision. And the floating point is actually fully deterministic. So if you've heard of other systems having problems with like x87 routing differently in different cases, WebAssembly does not have that problem. We just define x87 to not be the correct routing mode in the correct.
I thought that was really cool. So one other thing about this is it was in my backyard and I didn't even know it. So I feel really bad. It was in Bellevue. I could have gone to the C++ conference. And so he's got Star Trek quotes on all the different slides.
Routing mode. And we do have tests for this, is the IEEE routing modes for single and double precision. Endianness is also something that we can talk a lot about, which is big endian or little endian is better.
I think that's probably enough. But I'll put a link to the rest of the talk because it's about, it's an hour-long talk. So that kind of, I think just that, what he rapid fires down right off the top there sort of tells you why WebAssembly is sort of a big deal. And then I decided, well, let's go, what's the next link? Let's look into support amongst the browsers. Well, this weekend, maybe it was Friday, I can't remember, but Firefox 52 was released, and it introduces WebAssembly support in Firefox Stable. And then just 2 days ago, Google announced Chrome 57 with WebAssembly in it. And so then I decided to go check on WebKit upstream, and there's an open bug. It's bug 146064, and it's a bug to get WebAssembly into WebKit, and it's already in the nightly builds right now. So it's in development status. It's got support by WebKit. Essentially, that means if it's going to be in WebKit, it's already in Chrome, it's already in Firefox, it's going to be on the iPhone, probably within a release or two of iOS. It's going to be on the Mac desktop with Chrome, Firefox, and Safari.
Well, with Safari for sure. So I saw that bug too. Now, you probably know this a little better than me. How does the mobile WebKit rendering work? Is that just the WebKit project and they pull it in from the upstream, or is there some possibility that mobile Safari won't have it?
My understanding is that there was some things introduced to WebKit in the past that Apple wasn't super on board with, and they still went with it. But I'm not really.
Still took it in.
Yeah, I don't really, because I think if you think about it, if they start forking that, but I don't know. I really don't. I don't have the answer to it. But
well, I mean, for those who listened to last week's show, this was kind of the big thing, right? If mobile Safari, because Apple's a bunch of bitches, would go ahead and support this, that's awesome for those of us who do a lot of work in hybrid, right? But I wasn't so sure that the upstream WebKit project was always pulled directly into
not either.
Safari.
I seem to recall in the past that there was something there I thought, Apple's not going to do this, and I can't.
I thought there was something they rejected in the past. If somebody could fact check,
sounds like I'd love somebody to tell us no. So then
basically do our job for
So I've got Chrome 57 installed, Mr. Dominic, and I thought I would try out this WebAssembly demo. It's a Unity app embedded. It's a WebAssembly Unity app embedded in the web page using WebGL and whatnots, and it's whoa. Here it goes. Whoa. All right. And I'm playing. It's frame rates. I mean, it's just a little simple game, an overhead tank game. But wonder how oh, there it is. I see.
Get into chopper, Chris. Get into chopper. Sorry.
I am a destroyer. So there you go. I just blew up the tank. That's WebAssembly right now. Like, it's here, dude. It's not even necessarily the future. It's basically here. WebAssembly arrived with very little fanfare until now.
WebAssembly kind of showed up at the party. It was like, hey, guys, how you doing?
So one of the things that I felt better about after doing some reading this weekend was that WebAssembly describes a memory-safe sandbox execution environment that could even be implemented inside existing JavaScript virtual machines, which I think is one of the reasons why it's probably taking off so fast. I like that security model, so it's not, it's I think the reason why WebAssembly I was an oversight on my part was I come from a time when my industry was just abused by plugins and ActiveX and things like this. And so, not like this, but things that echo this. And so I had a natural sort of like, oh, this is always bad. This is always a bad thing. But I think it's pretty obvious looking at this that this is in a much better state. When embedded in the web, WebAssembly will enforce the same origin and permission security policies of the browser. It's also part of a broader initiative. It's not just a Google thing. It's not just a Mozilla thing. I mean, it's a genuine cross-industry effort, a genuine standard, which I feel pretty good about too.
Yeah, I mean, from if I'm going to develop a product or an application for a customer, having WebAssembly give me these performance increases and having the browser basically be a unified development target via WebAssembly is just awesome. Right. I mean, I can't express how much that kind of simplifies worrying about version numbers, installed libraries, dependencies. Forget about it. My target's the web. My target's WebAssembly. It seems like the only one thing that's telling, though, is we haven't even talked about Edge, because I don't know if they really have any adoption, and Internet Explorer adoption of WebAssembly. But that aside, it seems like it's going to be, I really don't want to say this, but almost like the universal platform of the future.
Do you suppose, if that's true, and we go down the road a piece, and everybody's happy, we're shipping code, things maybe even iterated a couple of times.
Well, first of all, everybody won't be happy, but keep going.
Okay. But is this going to impact mobile development in a major way? I mean, I hate this discussion to a degree, but you've got to wonder, is this going to make the pendulum swing back away from native apps again? We've heard a lot of discussion a year ago. Remember last year, the big or maybe it was a year before, the big conversation, the web is dead on the iOS platform side. The web is dead. Everything's going into apps. And to a degree, if you look at the companies that are worth supposedly billions of dollars right now, some of them are nothing but an app. And there's some big...
So there's a lot to unpack there, right?
Hold on, one second. So do you think this could change some of that?
No, but I think it's also an unfair question.
Okay.
If you're talking about like TechCrunch, Silicon Valley, darling apps, then yes, but I almost feel like they're sort of living in the past. Most people who are paying other people to develop apps for them are enterprises, and they are not paying for apps per se, right? They're paying for a solution where the quote unquote app is just another portal into the solution. And more often than not, the app, in quotes, right now is a hybrid app using something like Ionic, right? So at Buccaneer, we love Ionic. Our default hybrid framework is Ionic too. We are looking forward now. We are kind of skating to where the puck is going to go to what's called a progressive web app situation, where it's actually all just a browser app, but almost like taking responsive design, but putting it on steroids because of WebAssembly, because of higher performance in the browser, where everything's just in the cloud. Everything's just on the web and in the browser. I cannot remember the last time a non-startup-y, non-kind of consumer-facing company asked us, or really anybody I know kind of in this area, to do a non-hybrid app. Now, hybrid apps are apps, right? They go through the App Store, they go through all the approvals and all that crap. And they even have some native code in them, but they are not developed using Xcode for the most part. They're developed using, TypeScript or JavaScript. Same on the Android side, right?
I look at this and I think, if we go down this path, there is still the possibility that Apple could just decide, this hurts our app ecosystem. I still think it's a possibility Apple says this is a threat to the app ecosystem. This is a threat to in-app purchases. This is a threat to the 30% cut. This is a threat to unique special apps that are only on iOS. So we're going to drag our feet on this WebAssembly thing. And maybe they'll, have some other valid technical reason too. They generally would have to have multiple reasons to do something like that. And that could be a major thorn in the side of this whole thing, because it's not going to totally prevent adoption, but it definitely wouldn't be just a blowout success if we just had it universally.
Well, I mean, it depends, right? If your app is your product, then that's a tough road to hoe in 2017. But you probably should go native anyway, right? But if your app is just a lens into your service or into your some sort of data API, then I don't think you care if Apple adopts this or not. I mean, tons of big companies are doing this right now with no WebAssembly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose so. I feel like somebody in your position, that would be really great for your business if they did. You just start moving this direction one day.
Well, it's funny because we already are. Right. Just to kind of open the kimono a little, apps are less than 20% of my business now. Apps are almost like an old, those were the good old days. Not that in fact, now things are better, but, and the reason for that is the market that wanted, a $15,000, $20,000 app project kind of died, right? Those were startups. Those were people who have moved on. The app gold rush is over. Most of it is basically web solutions that have some sort of mobile responsiveness or progressive mobile interface. They are not pure apps. I have not hit file new project in Xcode in probably a year.
That's interesting.
For a client. I've done my own, keeping up with skills, but and a little bit of maintenance here and there, of course, for iPhone projects, but nothing in terms of new business. It's virtually nil. The only native work I've really been seeing are some enterprises that have like large scale Android tablet distributions that need just maintenance work, right?
You're saying the times have changed? Is that what you're saying? Times have changed?
Well, I mean, in fact, about a month ago, I wrote a post called "App Developers Are Dead," and it's kind of true, right? The apps are no longer their own little magical ponies. Apps are, oh my God, my son loves My Little Pony, and I keep making references to like Applejack.
The new one with all the colors.
Friendship is freaking magic.
There's a lot of colors in that cartoon.
It's very trippy. I imagine you watch it with your bong quite frequently.
Oh yeah, dude, that's what I do.
That's what you do. It's what I thought. No, but all drug use aside, I don't know why I do that to you. It's 2017. Yeah, you said it best. Sign of the times. The app thing is kind of over. Not to say that like no one's developing apps, but in terms of your consultancy and you're doing work for businesses. You
can't be a one-trick pony. That can't be even your pony.
Well, it's not even that. That's not a trick they want to see, right? The app is just another interface, and it's usually a watered-down interface from the giant Rails app you're doing for them. So, yeah, it's great. We still offer it, but it's, if a deal is X dollars, the app is probably like 5% of the deal. Rather than being the deal itself. So that's, except for Electron apps, but those aren't mobile apps. So,
that sounds like a future show. All right, Mr. Dominic, we have a couple more things to jump into feedback-wise too. But really quick, let's mention our first sponsor this week, and that's DigitalOcean, DigitalOcean.com. When you sign up, use our promo code CODERDIGITAL, and you'll get a $10 credit, and you can try out their $5 rig 2 months for free, or try out their hourly pricing, which is phenomenal. It's a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to giving you an easy and simple way to spin up a rig super fast on their really nice infrastructure. They have all SSD drives from the cheapest rigs all the way up to the big mamma jammas with 200 and something gigs of RAM. SSDs means fast, 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 fast. So one of the things that's great about headless Linux, and that means no GUI. So it's like you go spin up a droplet and you get a Linux command line even with 512 megs of RAM. When you have an SSD storage and you have a 40 gigabit E connection coming into that machine, it is phenomenal the kind of performance you can get, how much load you can put on that thing. And that's just $5 a month for that sucker, and it just goes up from there. I love their 3 cents an hour machine, 2 cores, nice, fast 3 terabyte transfers, 3 terabytes of transfer. It's just such a good, perfect price to performance ratio for me and what I do. They have data centers all over the world: New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto. You got money. But it's all about the interface. I got to say it again. It's all about their interface. Mind blown when I saw this the first time. I still remember how impressed I was, because I am still impressed years later when I log in. How they have managed to take something as complicated as managing virtual servers, taking snapshots, backups, deploying applications with a single click, HTML5 interfaces for your console, managing your SSH keys and your DNS and your networking. And they've wrapped it in this simple, easy-to-use interface that even a beginner could totally figure out. It's remarkable. And then when you work with DigitalOcean a lot, you really start to appreciate their API. Makes it super easy to automate just about anything. Your mind is blown when you go from issuing a command on the command line to a brand new DigitalOcean server spun up with Ubuntu LTS, Docker, all up to date, and then it's importing the Docker image that you wanted to try. It really feels like the future. You can fire up infrastructure at an unbelievable pace with the API. In fact, even our good buddy Alan, they had a huge weekend for Scale Engine a couple of months back. Huge weekend. They were streaming some massive sports events, and they thought, we better get ready for a little more infrastructure. And so they used that API and they spun up DigitalOcean droplets as they needed. Now, DigitalOcean has since announced something that would have been a huge lifesaver for them, and something that even you could use for one application just to make it super responsive and available. They have these load balancers that are integrated now in with the DigitalOcean service. So you can scale your applications and improve availability across the infrastructure in just a few clicks. It's so cool. It's built right into the whole interface too. You don't have to be some sort of scaling expert. You don't have to be Alan Jude to take advantage of this one. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. Support the show. Get a $10 credit. Keep us on the air. And try out DigitalOcean with that credit at DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL. A big thank you to DigitalOcean. Thank you to everybody out there for using the promo code CODERDIGITAL at DigitalOcean.com. So Microsoft's got some new toys. They've got new Visual Studio 2017. It's here. That's my best trumpet. Sorry. Are you fired up and excited, Mr. Dominic, about Microsoft's Visual Studio 2017 with its new features, its better fixes, and improved interface?
Sure. Yeah, no, Visual Studio 2017 actually looks interesting. I prefer not to work in a Windows environment.
Yeah.
But I do about 4 or 5 times a year spend a month or two working in Visual Studio. So, I do it now about half time.
Yeah.
I like the new kind of cleaner UI. It feels less complicated to me. I sort of can't wait for Project Rider to be out of beta from JetBrains, because I just like JetBrains. What's interesting to me is Visual Studio for Mac. I'm hoping to see more improvements to that. In fact, there have been. The one kind of big thing I'm noticing in the what they're promoting for the new Visual Studio 2017, which I have to say I have not installed because I have 2015 installed for production reasons, is the increased Xamarin debugging and increased focus on mobile development.
Yeah, I see this.
Seems like they're really kind of embracing just like that's what people are doing. Again, right, we were just talking about hybrid apps. Another way you could go with hybrid apps is, of course, Xamarin. So that's great. If you are a Microsoft developer, I think you will probably be happy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I do agree. It does look like a nice improvement, but I don't have much to share about it. I distinctly remember, just going back to when I was reminiscing about ActiveX, I distinctly feel like I remember a time where I wouldn't have seen them actively advertising GitHub integration or iOS support. Like, it is so much has changed. It really has. When you look at a big release like this for something that used to be a core part of Microsoft's dominant strategy on the desktop was their development tools. And now their development tools have been updated to reflect their new strategy. And so you see things like Docker big and pronounced in here, and iOS, and it's just sort of, and Android too, and Android as well. Just it's a totally different world now. I don't know, just interesting seeing that.
It's a little weird. I mean, it would be interesting to hear from the Microsoft guys in the audience. You know, Microsoft is pitching Visual Studio 2017 as basically your one-stop IDE for all your development needs.
Yep, I would say so.
Is that how folks in the Windows side really use it? I mean, I don't even do that with JetBrains on.
I think it's Ubuntu, a brilliant strategy. If you're already on Windows, you're already using Visual Studio, so this is your world, right? And you want to branch out. Why not branch out with the tools that you know intimately so well and have built up all this muscle memory around using?
Well, that's kind of like JetBrains, right? We will release an IDE for every freaking language and platform you could possibly think about.
But the learning curve is sometimes easier if you get to learn in the tool that you already use.
Right, if it's the exact same program, so to speak. Yeah, I guess, right? I mean, I don't know much about what is going on in the Windows community. I listen to some kind of Microsoft-focused podcasts, but they all seem pretty excited about, like, hey, how to do client-side JavaScript. Like, it in so many ways, it feels like a different world. Which I guess makes sense. I mean, even my workflow in Visual Studio is radically different, and I think sort of inferior to my workflow on Linux or Mac. Just because I think using a command line interface is faster and more efficient because you can script it rather than having to like go through menus and crap like that to do builds and things. But that may just be because, you know, before I was deep into kind of doing dev on Linux, I was a Mac guy, and you know, under Mac is Unix, right? It's BSD. So
you can't have a Visual Studio 2017 release without a C# release. I mean, this is a party.
I thought. I mean, you. I guess you have to. I mean, and this is. I gotta say, C# is getting sexier and weirdly more complicated every day.
This is the frosting on the cake, man. You got to have the frosting.
It is the cherry on the turd sandwich. I'm kidding. So
it's looking good to you. What are you liking?
Okay, well, there are way too many features for me to go
dude.
through.
I know. When I saw this, I was like, how can we possibly do this justice in one episode?
I'm going to pick 3.
Okay.
Number 1, pattern matching. And I'm going to read right from the MSDN doc here. C# 7 introduced the notion of patterns. Yay! Which, abstractly speaking, are syntactic elements that can test that a value has a certain, quote, shape and extract information. So what the hell does that mean? Well, it is a new way to test cases in your code.
Oh, okay.
This is a pretty nascent implementation, but I know some of our more functional ponies will be pretty interested in. This is another thing basically stolen from F#. I mean, if we really want to boil it down, there's been a trend of functional programming techniques and abilities bleeding from F# into C#. It's Microsoft's attempt to, you know, their whole thing is that C# can basically be your programming language, right? C# on the mobile client, C# on the desktop client, C# on the back end, TypeScript, which is a Microsoft project on the front end for the web. So they're adding more functional abilities, which is actually great. There's also a few cool tricks with switch statements that you can do with patterns. They have tuples now. Hey, there's a lot here. The one thing I would say about a lot of these changes, and I'm not a deep Microsoft guy, is I spent a good portion of last quarter doing C#. One thing I found about it is, and it's not the first time I've done C#, but I spent about 3 months doing C# a year, right? I always end up in there. Every year with every version, the language is just bigger. Meaning there is like radically new functionality. Like I pick up C# code from another developer and they've got this crazy new functional thing that they pulled over from F# that they're doing. You know, and I do wonder, again, a question for our Microsoft folks in the audience, do you ever feel like the language is moving too fast? Or is this my curmudgeonliness being an old Objective-C guy, which, you know, doesn't change?
By too fast, do you mean is it going to grow? Is it growing too big too quickly? Like, is it too much?
Is it incorporating too many functional elements to the point where it's kind of becoming every possible language feature you could have thrown into one language.
Yeah. Because and do you think part of that is because that sounds like something Microsoft might do?
I mean, that's a very 90s way of thinking, right?
But is that why it's coming through, do you think?
Yeah, I'm trying to see, is it like a prejudice? Is it because I'm not a big fan of like kind of the Microsoft development way?
Because do you feel like that could happen to Swift right now?
Well, what I will say about Swift in the Swift team's defense is there is a logical consistency, even if you read the Swift Evolution mailing list and everything that they do. Now, I don't agree with the logic. I think what they're doing is kind of destructive and wasteful because I still think Objective-C was fine, but whatever. But, well, no. But see, I saw you I see you just baited me there. It still flows, right? So Swift feels like you should follow a more prototypical development pattern, meaning not prototypical in terms of like a prototype, but prototypical in terms of not prototypical, protocol, right? Protocol-oriented programming, prototypes or JavaScript. So many languages, Chris.
I thought you just meant like you follow a very procedural process. Like you.
No. They want. So there's, and we're not going to go too deep into this, but there's OO, there's functional, and there's protocol-oriented programming, which is the new hotness.
I love it.
I don't think that it makes sense, given that Cocoa exists, right?
Right.
Now, if they were to rewrite Cocoa to be protocol-oriented, particularly UI kit, then sure. Well, no. Why no? That would be better, right? I mean, that would make sense. If you gave me a protocol-oriented framework and a protocol-oriented language, then that makes sense. Now, Swift is technically OO, but it really, quote-unquote, idiomatic Swift follows more protocol-oriented patterns. That makes sense. So let me kind of contrast this back with C# just because I know this is getting a little in the weeds.
I love it.
I don't like what they're doing as Swift, but they are following that logic. Right?
There's a logic there you follow.
There's a logic. They're saying we want people to move away from these patterns they've learned in Objective-C.
Right.
With a more pure classical small talk OO style. And we want them to go to this protocol-oriented sort of method with, optional and wraps, crap like that. So we're going to every version push them that way, right? Again, you may not like the individual decisions, but there's a
path that you can follow there. Yeah.
Right. There's an obvious, I could see in 3 years what Swift's going to look like, and I can make some educated guess. However, in God damn it, in C#. C# is originally it was like a Java clone, right? It was like Java,
I love it when you say that.
Well, that's what it was.
Dude. I know, but I love it when you say that.
Did they make it because they got sued because of Jsharp? I mean,
hey, that's always. I know, but every time we say that, we hear from somebody at Microsoft or someone's like, "Oh, that's not really true."
Well, it's not true anymore, but it was true, right? Like, when it came out, I'm not even sure why that's a bad thing. It was. I don't
know.
Right. It was a.
It just tickles me every single time.
CLR, I mean, the CLR is in a lot of ways better than the JVM. I'm not sure why they would be ashamed to say that, yes, we have implemented, we took ideas from the Java community and we implemented them differently, and now they're better.
I have a theory to pitch to you. I would suspect that the reason why you feel like you can suss out the logic of the Swift project and ergo project out a map of where it's going, a path, if you will, I would suggest it's because they're younger, tighter, more narrowly focused, whereas C# probably doesn't have such a thing. They probably have a much more nebulous set of goals, multiple teams, stakeholders, with a huge staff. Now, this is my perception bias of Microsoft, but I would say it's probably a order of magnitudes larger scale operation, and the way that's reflected to the public perception is this sort of ambiguity around where it's going, why it's getting so large, and what their priorities are in terms of the focus of C#.
Well, there's a couple other things too, right? One, okay, we're not going to get in a fight about the whole Java thing, but C# has a lot of history. Swift does not.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and C# has to carry compatibility backwards for the most part, where Swift,
right, Exactly.
We know how they feel about breaking things.
I think it's the nature of the beast. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's just, and it's not even necessarily. But what they could do, Mike, I think, if you accept this premise, what I think they could do is they could be better about communicating how they're going to tidy things up. What their not even what they're going to do, but just what their philosophy is about keeping things tidy and keeping things lean.
Well, in their defense, they're keeping it tidy, right? So this is kind of like last week we talked about Java 9, and we talked about the reactive sort of elements, right? And I forgot the name of the class, but they added that React. Somebody can just listen to last week's show. And I said I didn't like the reactive programming model being forced into Java because Java is not a reactive sort of programming language, right? It's Java. Swift is doing the exact same thing. I mean, not Swift. God damn it. C#. I think if we had like somebody from Microsoft's C# team, they would say, hey, man, you don't like these features, you don't have to use them, right? All the legacy stuff still exists, and it is still supported. That, I think, is kind of a limp answer, given that if I get a code base using all these crazy features, I now have to support it. But they're certainly not forcing you. Like there's a difference, right? The C# team is not putting a bayonet to your back like the Swift team did with the Swift 2 to 3 transition and saying you must change or else. Yeah, they're saying, no, we added this stuff and it's additive.
I think that's I mean, you can mischaracterize. I think that could be a mischaracterization because if you don't also do that, you end up with something that's huge and bloated and sort of ambiguous.
Why is it huge and bloated?
I'm saying that can be like if you're not willing to just lay down the law, say sometimes we're young. It's still okay to make these transitions. We've got to make them.
Well, they're not young. They're from the early 2000s, late 90s.
I'm talking about Swift. I mean, I'm saying you're giving Swift a hard time for. They're not holding a knife to your back. It's like they're making the best long-term health decision for the project.
My issue with Swift is how they versioned the language, right? If they were going to do stuff like that, they shouldn't have called it a 1.0. And they shouldn't have required you to upgrade to like deploy things in Xcode to the app store. I mean, there's a whole thing about Apple kind of being heavy-handed on policies, which we can talk about if we want, because we got some feedback on that. Really? That we could. That is a little different.
I thought there was some before we go off of the C# release. I thought there was I'm trying to find it now. I can't find it. There's a comment in here that I thought was interesting. It says that C# is. Here we go. C# is sliding towards being a write-only language for large-size solution code bases. And he goes through a whole lot of reasons that I don't really feel like getting into. But it does seem to be there's some people that are agreeing with him in here about it. And he draws some comparisons between other write-only, like APL and Perl and Forth. He draws some comparisons that, I don't know. I guess it seems like a pretty solid release. I still feel like even from the outside, I could look at different projects and the way they communicate, and I'd say I would not necessarily say that I fully grok the way that what the .NET project has in store. But one of the things, like I said earlier, that I really like is they're because of their size and because of their long established history. Like when they do a release, like this is they go all out on this stuff. This is. Right. This aspect of their communication, just to sort of counterbalance what I said earlier, this aspect of their communication is just top notch.
No, I mean, the fact that there's this great MSDN doc that even if you don't like these features or you're confused by them, you can just read and understand them.
Yep.
And I want to add one thing. If you are, I guess, more progressive or more aggressive than I am on wanting to kind of move things forward in a different direction.
Be aggressive.
Then C# adopting some of these features is a huge win, right? Because now this is bringing this type of functionality to, I mean, hundreds of thousands of developers who just like work regular jobs. Well, right. I mean, it's the language of the dark matter developers. So, and I don't want to get into it because you know what?
All right.
We're not Microsoft guys, and I feel like we often turn back to, well, it's just Java, you know.
And I love that. All right, so there is some hoopla to get into, and I got some questions for you, Mike. I got some questions for you.
How dare you question me?
ScaleYourCode.com. Go there, sign up. You can unsubscribe at any time. Go there, but sign up. Only 2 to 3 emails a month, and it's so worth it because you get access to so many great interviews where you can learn from successful developers, sysadmins, team builders. I've covered a few of them. Like the founder of Ruby on Rails is up there, the co-founder of Stack Exchange, the chief architect at Reddit, as well as a bunch of others: Google, Etsy, Heroku, Shopify, Docker. In fact, I was just looking at one. Let's see here. Yep. There. Aha. Look at me with the bookmarks. Haha. Building APIs the Cloud Elements way. How cool. This is really cool. It's Travis. I think it's Mackenzie. I'm not sure. Mackenzie. I hope you could probably listen and find out. Maybe I will. Cloud Elements, of course, as you likely know, is a platform for API integration and management. And this is an interview with Travis about that. You can. I think it's actually kind of neat too because you get a little insight into how Travis works, like with the communication tools and whatnot that they use, which is very, very handy for people who are looking at improving communication in an engineering team. So that's one example. There's many, many others up there. Go to scaleyourcode.com. Sign up for their email list. You get 2 to 3 emails when they got a new interview or a new post or something like that, and you get to learn more. So simple, so easy, and it's free. ScaleYourCode.com. Go there, sign up, get access to those interviews, and learn more and enjoy. Not just enjoy, but while you're there, dig around and learn from some of the mistakes that they ask them about, which I think is brilliant. It's brilliant. ScaleYourCode.com. So Mr. Dominic's quest to dominate YouTube continues, and this week I noticed he's doing it with a new style, the video up in the upper left corner.
Yeah,
of the...
You're so funny.
And you know what I thought? At first I thought, oh, this is brilliant. He's going to have a whole bunch of information show up on the side and underneath. It's going to be like bullet points and code example or something. I didn't know what it was going to be, and then I realized as I watched, you just
encoded the video wrong.
Yeah. So what are you using to do that?
So I'm using OBS. I'm doing it on the lemur,
okay.
and I'm trying to. I'm having a lot of problems with these videos.
It's funny because and I do not. I was going to say don't use a Mac, but there would be no way to get that on the Mac unless you intentionally did that. It's just funny that on Linux you can accidentally end up with that because there would be no way to get that on the Mac unless you went into your video editor and scaled the video down and positioned it up in the corner. Yeah. It's so funny.
Apparently the default was I don't know what I did.
I know what you did. In OBS you didn't. You had to drag the little box or make it fill the you'll get it. You'll nail it. Don't worry. You're close, really.
I mean, I did learn how to use GIMP a little bit, so that's an achievement. To do the cover image, which wasn't great, but the little
I noticed you were messing around with GIMP. Good for you.
Yeah, this is a process, right? Like everything else.
And the only way, and God, do I know, the only way to get good at video is to just do it. And the only way to really do it to completion is to publish it and then learn. And you can go back to some of my early videos. It's so embarrassingly bad. Some of my old stuff.
I mean, what I would say is the video that Chris is talking about is 3 Docker tips for the enterprise with a bonus tip.
You and the bonuses. Yeah, I got it linked in the show notes because that's how I do, guys.
There's a corresponding blog post for it on Buccaneer.io. It is some valuable information about Docker and how you can practically use it. There's also a little bit of an offer in there if you or your company wants to do something with Docker. But yeah, I need to make sure the video is full screen.
I congratulate you though for still trying, and also for not doing it on the Mac, because it's just if you can learn to do it on a platform that is more flexible for you, and what I mean is one that you can install on different hardware. So when you're changing laptops and stuff, you don't have all of a sudden this requirements that it has to be a MacBook Pro with a dedicated GPU because that really locks you into a certain price range because you're doing this on a Lemur. And the Lemur is not a big old MacBook Retina with a dedicated GPU, and you can still get this close. Now, I could tell if you had a slightly faster machine, your frame rate might be a little better. And do you have if you had the Rode or the Yeti, that'd be good too.
Yeah. So what I'm.
But I like the camera position better this video, and I like the lighting better. So there's some compliments.
Yep. I put a printer toner underneath the Lemur to get the camera up. Life hacks. So what can I say, right? This is something that I'm trying, and I think it is working. I now have a newfound respect for video production because it's a tremendous pain in the ass. And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah,
I mean,
good for you.
I think the tips are valuable. If I can just get the video right.
Really, that's the key part is if the tips are valuable, people will listen. And then you can work on the other stuff. So it sounds like you got your priorities right. Good. I'm glad you stuck with it. I wanted to get your opinion on something while we're talking about the Ubuntu's. Canonical has launched a new tutorials website. Now this isn't shocking all to begin with, But it seems like they're really focusing like out of the gate on developers and developer activities on Ubuntu machines. They say it's part of a bigger project to improve our documentation across all our other projects. Our goals are to improve the discoverability and ease of use of our documentation. And it looks like it's also going to be contributable by the community. I don't know to what fashion. It's not like a wiki, so I don't know exactly. But I thought this was fascinating. It's basically a path for getting started on development on Ubuntu, and they've combined that now with an Ubuntu app developer portal, which sounds interesting. Canonicals David P. announced the release of the Ubuntu developer portal, which can be found over developer.ubuntu.com. After several months of work, the Ubuntu developer portal aims to help new developers get familiar with technologies, frameworks, and processes for developing rich applications for the Ubuntu platform. It features help videos, links to resources, instructions on how to get started, and for developers with an application already published in the Software Center, a dashboard for tracking down downloads or sales. So they do seem to be... there's never a wrong time to do this, but it does seem to be like I'm going to go check out developer.ubuntu.com. Let's go take a look.
I checked it out before the show. It's interesting. You could make the next great generation of apps.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know about that. Yeah, they have.
Oh.
I feel like there's a bit of a credibility problem here when they are showcasing stuff that isn't even shipping products on a large scale. Like the phone ships, but not at a scale that's attractive to developers. So why not? Why are there not pictures of any of the world famous applications that run on an Ubuntu server? Why is there not examples of what are people likely coming here to learn about? I would bet the percentages are much higher for server-side development, cloud development, quote unquote. Even I would bet Ubuntu desktop development is a higher percentage of the reason why people are coming here than to develop software for Ubuntu phone. But yet what is showcased here? It's Ubuntu phone. It's a mixed priority problem they have because they make money from all these other aspects. The thing they don't make money from is the only thing they constantly talk about publicly in this medium. It drives me crazy. Not to be critical, but I feel like if anything, Ubuntu Core should be up above everything else, or any of their Internet of Things initiatives should be anything in that regard, or even Snap packages would be a better thing to have up on this screen.
Snap packages are actually kind of a big deal. I would like to see more on that. I don't know. I mean, I have literally no interest in Ubuntu phone apps, right?
Exactly.
And I'm pretty sure I'm far from alone on that.
Yeah, and I don't know. One of the conversations we had years ago, I think now, that just really resonates with me is that there's just not a really great path to start with targeting the Ubuntu desktop or Ubuntu servers even though that's it's disproportionate to the size of the market. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like with the size of the Ubuntu server base, I would think there would be a very rich set of documents and courseware and videos and really easy to follow and understand paths to get started just right there on that page from Canonical. But instead what you have is a world of third-party documentation, guides, and Stack Exchange threads that are out of date every year. So you just have this graveyard of Ubuntu documentation that nobody's paid to maintain it. They at best are getting ad revenue when people visit their crappy websites that have ads everywhere. And I don't know if this is because Canonical doesn't make enough money so they can't spend money on initiatives like this, or if it's because they spend money on other initiatives like Ubuntu TV, Ubuntu Android, or Ubuntu Phone. Or Mir. I don't know exactly where this disconnect comes from because the more people I meet at Canonical, the more I respect and find them intelligent. So it's a great group of people, but yet it doesn't seem like there's a real connection between what drives that company's actual revenue and where their actual market wins are. There's not a connect there. Like they have a product that has a phenomenal deployment base in the server. Like it is, I believe, one of the most underrated user bases that we talk about because we just don't have conceptually. It's not in our dialogue much. There's nobody talking about it. It's just sort of assumed. But we talk about the huge user base of Android or the massive user base of Windows on the desktop or iOS or whatever. But we don't. But in the same category of numbers at the same scale is Ubuntu. But we don't talk about it like that. And it feels like Canonical doesn't even think of it like that. Because you go to their website and what are they talking about? They're talking about the dumb phone that's on hiatus right now. It's madness, Mike. It's madness.
It's weird. I mean, they seem to think that like Unity is some sort of, and the ability to do like apps that scale up and down for the phone is some sort of competitive advantage for Ubuntu.
Well, I think they think it is.
Well, it's not, right? I mean, when I think of Ubuntu, other than, I mean, I run an Ubuntu desktop, but I also, I don't do any development for my Ubuntu desktop, right? I do development for servers most of the time and for web applications. And we were talking about at the beginning of the show, and we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now, that the target platform for a lot of development is just going to be the web. It's just going to be the browser.
Yeah, if you look at, since we've done this show, since we've started the show, they've had zero success. I would say zero success in any large application targeting the Ubuntu desktop. If you look at the big applications that even the folks at Canonical are using, it's things like Telegram, which is Qt-based, which is also their own forked version of Qt, essentially. They have Slack, which is a web app. They have a bunch of web applications, Hangouts, another web application. But even at Canonical, their own team, there's not like there's some huge, big application that was targeted for Ubuntu. It's still like if you're on the Ubuntu, the number one apps on Ubuntu are web apps, which are, guess what? The same exact apps I can have on Fedora, the same ones I can have on Arch. There's really no competitive advantage there. But they've been trying to talk up this story for developers since before this show was on the air, and it's gone nowhere. And I think the reason why this gets me fired up is this is the reason. Is this stuff. It's this trying to get you to focus on something that doesn't matter because it assumes that developers are stupid. It assumes that you don't know where the market is going. It assumes that you don't know what makes money. It assumes that you can be tricked into getting hyped up for a mobile platform that nobody uses. And that's a reason why it's offensive. Not only does it not properly represent the market, but it is offensive because it assumes you're dumb enough to want to do that. Now, if you have an Ubuntu phone, then you'd probably want to make an Ubuntu app, and you don't need this page because you already know about it. It is a self-serving market right now. Those developers don't need to be evangelized to. They're already using the platform. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it literally makes no sense to me, right? I mean, my focus in terms of development is, web apps with Docker on Ubuntu systems or possibly Core OS.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's probably super common, right?
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of like, it almost feels like they're skating to where the puck was in 2010.
Or they're hoping maybe the puck's still coming around. Like the puck's still, it's just a long arc for the puck.
Well, but we heard the story a couple of years ago from Canonical, right? Oh, yeah, iOS and Android, but developing markets, we'll get them.
Yeah, right.
And then Android basically picked up the entire developing world.
Yeah.
So where does this go?
I don't know, because the project itself is in a sense in stasis while they work out a few things and they make some transitions to new packaging format and whatnot. So it's not even clear where it's going internally at the moment. I think it's being, for Canonical, I believe it's being folded into just a broader part of Ubuntu. Now you just have Ubuntu across the cloud, across the desktop, the laptop, and the mobile device. And you can have, it's all Ubuntu. It's not going to be Ubuntu mobile. It's not going to be Ubuntu desktop. It's all Ubuntu. And it's just going to be part of the broader Ubuntu strategy. How that translates for developers to make any sense of what to develop, when they should develop what, I don't know. But maybe one day that'll be told to us. In the meantime, the world moves on. We have Electron apps. We have web apps. We have containerized applications. It just feels like they've just totally squandered a massive field advantage.
Ubuntu has this field advantage in the Docker space right now, but Core OS is starting to nip on their heels, right? I'm starting to hear whispers about clients saying, "Well, why Ubuntu?"
And there's other distributions that are becoming more popular to run inside the container too.
How about RHEL? Right, RHEL will do Docker.
Yeah, or CentOS. Yeah,
CentOS.
I think that division will remain. The fundamental packaging aspects are so. But yeah, perhaps. Yeah. But okay, one thing, then we're all done. But I just wanted to, because the reason what made me sort of reflect on this is I thought back, Microsoft blew so many opportunities back in the day. When iTunes was coming up, Apple had to convince the Windows market to install QuickTime. You had to install all this stuff, right? QuickTime and iTunes. And I think at one point, they even started installing Safari or tried to. And they'd, try to set the QuickTime trailer stuff up on your computer. And despite all of this hassle, despite all of this distrust of the QuickTime player, and the fact that Apple made horrible Windows software, Apple was able to launch a dominant iTunes music store right underneath the nose of Windows Media Player that came pre-installed on every Windows desktop, that had a store of some kind. In fact, back then, I don't know if you kids remember, but back then, Microsoft had a deal with MTV. It was the Windows Media Store was a combination with MTV, and they had a music store. And it just went. They didn't properly execute. They had the home turf advantage. They had all of the desktop. They had Windows Media Player installed on every single one of those, and people still went out of their way to get iTunes. That's the level of squandering that I think Canonical is committing right now with their server base. It feels like a massive squandering of developer resources right now. And instead of getting all of these developers to circle around the Ubuntu platform, what you're really getting is developers to write things that are way more agnostic than they've ever been before and make Ubuntu less and less important to the overall machinery. And just as fast as Ubuntu got dominance on the cloud, it can be replaced by something like Alpine Linux or Core OS, or maybe even some crazy stunt that Red Hat pulls off. There's really nothing that's anchoring that market grip. People can try different package managers. Systems get replaced. It can be just a matter of years, and all of this can change. And in the meantime, they're telling you to write apps for their phone that they're not even shipping anymore. That's why it gets me. End of my piece. But I just feel like it has to be said.
Well, on that happy note.
Yeah, okay. All right, good. I love it when we end it on a happy note, Mr. Dominic. Where can people find you throughout the week? Go.
At Dumanuko on Twitter and at Buccaneer Tech on Twitter.
And give us your feedback. Let us know what you think about all the stuff we've covered this week. WebAssembly, the new C# stuff, your uses with Visual Studio, my thoughts on Ubuntu server market getting squandered. Don't forget to follow me at Chris LAS on Twitter, at Jupiter Signal for the network, coderradio.reddit.com for content and your feedback. Also, jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. Join us live next week over at jblive.tv. Get it converted to your local time at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. Thanks for being here. We'll see you right back here next week.